Why did you drag me into this, Edith?
Oh, I didn't plan to. I was gonna hoof it, but then the universe sent me a guy with a filthy car and nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. I have a family and a business.
The restaurant? You can't be serious!
Bob's Burgers is a very popular show, but it can't be denied that its popularity lies within a very specific niche.
You're the family from hell!
They're destroying the town!
I'm the Bobbist, and today I'll be discussing why I think Bob's Burgers isn't exactly the biggest cultural phenomenon. For this video, I'll be taking a look at the earlier misgivings and praise that caused the show to weed out its less than faithful fans until it found its dedicated following. Quite a few videos on the subject, so it's going to be a bit difficult not to hit a lot of the same talking points, but I'll do my best to add some value to the topic. Let's get started.
Do not alter anything on the chalkboard.
Well, what if I think of something better, which would be almost impossible not to do?
You will not think of something better because New Baconings is perfect. It's hilarious, right? You know what? I'm taking the chalk.
January 2011. Firework by Katy Perry was topping the charts, and Mark Zuckerberg was still the kind of guy you wanted to make a movie about. Isn't he like some kind of karate robot now? The same month also saw the debut of Bob's Burgers, which I find to be slightly clever. Bob ringing in the new year with his opening. Bob's Burgers saw some very rough animation and art style within its first season, which is frankly no different than any other cartoon. Just look at this comparison between when Family Guy first started and now. That said though, it's Bob's Burgers' art style that was pretty off-putting with its lack of chins and no distinction between neck and face. It just felt like the show was about a family of talking necks for some reason.
Oof, I look like a tweaked out Muppet.
Yeah honey, everybody does. See, when Bob's first started, the animation team worked in Adobe Flash, which heavily relies on puppet and keyframe animation rather than frame by frame. Ordinarily in a professional animation, each frame is individually drawn, but with keyframe animation you need only move an object from point A to point B in one single motion. I can think of no better indication of this animation style than in Sacred Cow. There's this laughable moment to me where Linda was literally not walking but just scrolling behind Bob. Like, what am I even looking at here? In fact, keyframe animation is what I use to make all my graphics. With all that said, from season 2 on down, they've been using various more professional animation techniques. The unfortunate situation is that by that time, Bob's Burgers' relatively poor animation had already developed a stigma within the adult animation community, eventually leading to jokes from Family Guy like this.
Bob's Burgers is on.
That show, and I mean no disrespect when I say this, but that show looks like it was animated in a moving car.
The fallacious part about this joke is that Bob's Burgers was already heading into its 10th season by this point. So not only was this showing Family Guy's continued pseudo-jealousy of the show, but also reveals the bias and dismissal of the animation strides the show had already achieved. This is the same bias that I feel causes people to turn away from the show, for it can be hard to notice in passing that the show's animation's gone from this to this. Side note, I do love Bob's push broom mustache compared to his crinkle cut fry stash, and to that end Linda's v-neck compared to her button up. And since we're on that subject, the pleasant observation from the duo at Bob's credits pointed out that Tina makes a return of Linda's button up in season 8.
As the person closest to adulthood here, I will say I'm opposed to this whole pranking thing. But Mom's pantyhose were really hard to get on, so I'll stay.
This suggests that they didn't just modify her character design, but Linda decided to wake up one day and say, I need to show a little more skin.
All right, if you got it, horn it.
The Bob's Burgers art style is also what caused me to be turned off from it. I mean, I didn't even become a fan until the hiatus between seasons 9 and 10, but the art just looks so normal to me now. I mostly love how great everyone's faces look when facing directly toward the camera, which a lot of cartoons can't pull off so well. They're all mostly bound to that 3/4 angle style, but Bob's characters look even nicer when facing directly at the screen compared to that angle. I said 3/4 anger so many times. It's the ER and the from quarter. Another thing I found off-putting when starting the show is Tina's voice. All I can think of is why. Why does this 14-year-old girl sound like a grown-ass man?
What's the matter, little lady?
I guess I just feel a little out of place here. Maybe because I don't have enough money and I'm not a grown man.
Oh, you can barely tell.
But as all seasoned Bob's Burgers fans may already know, Tina was originally supposed to be a 16-year-old boy named Daniel.
You kids know where you're supposed to be while we're gone, right? Daniel, you're on the grill.
My crotch is itchy.
Whoa.
But the showrunners didn't like the sibling dynamic with him included, so they changed him to a girl from the pilot.
My crotch is itchy.
Whoa.
That said, for comedic fuel, they contacted Dan Mintz and told him to still voice her the same way, giving birth to our boy crazy Tina. Now all I can think whenever I watch the unaired pilot is why. Why does this 16-year-old boy sound like a 14-year-old girl? These animated sitcoms tend to have 3 animation phases: the unaired pilot, its early run animation, and the final animation quality that will become staple for years to come. Regardless, Bob's Burgers has turned out some phenomenal animation within the series, and I think that if the stigma were to die and people could ignore their bias, it would get far more respect than its initial negative reception.
Give me butter! Run!
clean up. Homer, you've got company.
Why are there 2 sets of prices?
One's the Emmy winner discount.
Black coffee and toast, please.
So as I mentioned in the previous entry, Bob's Burgers debuted in 2011. By this time though, Fox's animation domination block already had its heavy hitters, The Simpsons and Family Guy, well established. American Dad was also entering its 8th season and was certainly no slacker, recently airing its 20th season on TBS.
Dad!
That's my boy playing the big-ass violin.
But the same year also saw the initial downfall of the Cleveland Show and, Alan Gregory. Low-key, I really wanted that show to work out because the trailer was great to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Miss Winthrop.
We're on court, sweetheart. What's your first name?
Gina, but you should never call me.
Gina. Can I see you in the hallway for a second?
But that's what happens when you let Seth Rogen Jr. Jonah Hill write a cartoon. So in all, I'd say there was in fact no better year for Bob's Burgers to air, but of course it had to be subject to the comparisons of its predecessors, and Lauren and the crew didn't exactly make it any easier. Bob's Burgers' first season had a fair amount of shock comedy, with its jokes about Linda slipping Bob Viagra, smoking crack, child molestation, or even Louise telling Tina to kill herself.
Jordan Sturman moved away, and now I'll never play kickball with him again.
Oh, you should kill yourself.
Yeah!
So with this grab bag of raunchy humor, it was easy to compare it to the likes of Family Guy, although Bob's Burgers still had a very distinct style of writing. Still though, Bob's Burgers found an early niche which I just don't understand. I mean, I didn't get into it until years later, and I've heard many fans say that they didn't get into it until much later either. So how it managed to survive earlier on is beyond me. Now that said, there's still a huge group of fans who prefer the season 1 jokes, and at the risk of offending anyone, I'll let that be what it may. But oil spill? Oh yeah.
Everyone gets drunk and spends lots of money, and this year Tabitha Johansson is headlining the concert.
Tabitha who?
The sexy pianist.
She sings that song about oil spills, but you know she's talking about her vagina.
Jane, how do you know that?
It's not subtle.
Oh, it's hot and wet and slick, and it's making everybody sick. Oil spill, oil spill, oil spill.
Ugh, you were right. It's not subtle.
See?
Within its first year, Bob's Burgers amassed a viewership of over 4 million, which for a new show stacks relatively well next to Family Guy's 9 million and The Simpsons' 7 million, but far better against the Cleveland Show's 4 million and American Dad's 2 million at the time. So yeah, that in mind, 4 million is nothing to scoff at. I mean, that's 99.85% higher than my subscriber count. What the fuck? That wasn't even remotely close. Embarrassed. Swear to God, I meant 999.85,000% higher, or 666 times. So I blame Satan. Yet and still, with such wonderfully telling numbers, the average Fox viewer refuses to get out of that Family Guy-centric brain, even though Bob's Burgers has long since established itself as one of the most subversive shows in animation history. You guys have no idea how many times I tried to deliver that line. Now, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Omegle, but it used to be a web-based text and video chat client that matched people with random users. Many YouTubers have farmed views and subscriptions based solely on the platform. I tried to seek Bob's Burgers fans to pick their brains and maybe do a video or two, but it was nearly impossible. Most had either never heard of the show or thought it got canceled years ago, and I'm talking American people. So it truly struck me that for a series to be, according to analytics, 27 times more in demand than the average show, how can it be so unknown among the public? That math ain't mathin'. We need Daryl, guys. Seriously, can we please bring back Daryl?
Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up.
Some people even said, oh, you mean that Family Guy ripoff? Like, what? Thinking. It's like it's not a thing anymore. And for people to have the gall to say that Family Guy is better than Bob's Burgers?
Whoa, better than whoa.
But maybe all this is for the best. We don't need a large and toxic fan base dipping their Reddit ladles in our wholesome stew. So we'll just sit back and continue to have a good thing and relish in all the awards and continued nominations.
There's the guy who started after me and was beneath me, but now he's like higher up than I am. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Darren.
I put all my savings into this place. This is the only thing I'm doing right now.
Right, I totally get it. All day, everyone's been telling me I needed a day off, and I got mad because I'd love to work, but they said that to me because they care about me. And having someone in your corner, well, that's what makes doing all of this worth it.
Oh, well, now you're gonna make me cry, Bob. Great.
If you were to sift through the Bob's Burgers community, one of the most common words that you'll hear echoing throughout is wholesome. Defined as being conducive to physical, emotional, or moral well-being, I find there to be a no more apt description of the show. But as mentioned among many YouTube videos and reviews, adult animated humor has spiraled down this hole where toxicity equals comedy. This concept has such a monopoly on the medium that it's what viewers are trained to expect, creating a space where choking your child is somehow funny, abusing your daughter is hilarious, and using your son-in-law as the proverbial punching bag as a knee slapper. Not since King of the Hill has such a negative status quo been subverted, and from its humble departure, Bob's Burgers emerged to continue that subversion. But what a time to be alive, folks. Is anyone else as excited about this as I am?
Yep.
Bob's Burgers is almost completely devoid of that negative comedic style, so when the average TV watcher tunes in with the expectation, it's written off as boring or unfunny. Now don't get me wrong, though it can be funny, there are times that I wish it was a lot funnier than it is, but the comedy isn't the primary reason that we tune in. It's the utter relatability and down-to-earth realism that we see from these characters. Do you see yourself in the schemes of a once matricidal talking baby? How many stories do you have about the hilarious cross-dressing alien that lives in your attic?
Ricky Spanish.
Or perhaps you'd like to shoot the breeze about the infinite versions of yourself in infinite realities while your grandson turns into whatever the hell this is. Now don't misunderstand me, I'm not shitting on these respective shows. I quite enjoy all of them for various reasons, but Bob's Burgers is where my heart is.
My eyes may wander, but my heart always comes home.
Bob's Burgers is constantly regarded as a comfort show. The series we wind down with after a hard day at work. The show that lulls us to sleep when thoughts keep you awake. Do you have a story of when your kid or sibling did something that was important and you did everything in your power to make sure that you were there to witness it? I bet you do. The unfortunate fact is we live in a world where clout-chasing douchebags are made to be celebrities for nothing more than childish behavior. The same world that sanctions bigotry and glorifies toxicity in the highest, so hey, maybe Family Guy is a little more relatable than I thought.
Oh, it's on now.
At the end of the day, if the world were a place where compassion and the overcoming of hardship was valued more than the amusement of witnessing another's hardship, it'd be a world where Bob's Burgers is king.
It's been so much pressure trying to raise good kids, good humans. It can mess you up. And then I get mad at you guys, but you're just being kids. It's just, it's just a lot. Come here, you. You know, I'm glad you're so spunky. It'll be good for you when you're older. Nobody's gonna push my Louise around.
Sorry, I got a little political there at the end, but sound off in the comments about your thoughts on the video. And yes, I'm a huge Dan Versus fan. I love that angry little man.
Who's angry? How dare you?
Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed the slight change in channel motif, but yes, I've unfortunately decided to drop the Great North content, which kind of sucks because a lot of the new subscribers seemed happy that I was doing content on the Great North. Now, I may return to it when the show gets a bit more traction, but while it's very well worth watching, content creation just doesn't seem to be a very worthwhile endeavor at the moment. I'm the Bobbist, and thank you guys so much for the amount of recent support. I mean, this is almost embarrassing. Do go on.